Hello, I'm Robert Walker, voluntary fact checker and helping you if you're scared of many things. And I haven't got time yet to write up a debunk about this whole Hormuz Strait thing, but I just thought I'd explain some basic things based on this Forbes article, which looks pretty good. So I think it does seem that people do this quite a lot, just going through someone's other story on the internet. It does seem to be an acceptable thing to do. I'm just going to quickly go through this and explain. So the situation is that's the Strait of Hormuz, and this is where the oil disembarkment from Iran. That's where the oil tankers dock in order to take the oil away. And Iran's parliament has voted to block the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this might seem, if you're used to other countries, surely they're going to do it. Remember, the Ayatollah in Iran, he can veto any law. He can also override any judicial decision. He can make everything about anything to do with religion, anything to do with the military, anything whatsoever. He has the last word on everything. As a supreme cleric in Iran, that's the way they do it. So it's extraordinarily unlikely that they do actually close the Strait of Hormuz, because they never have in the past. And the issue here is, well, first of all, that the US Navy, there's a huge US Navy presence in the area, and they're doing constant patrols through the strait. So they would very probably actually spot the. So the main way that the Iranians could do it is that they can't engage in naval war. The main way they would do it is by mining, sea mines. So they would swim, or they would go in small patrol boats, and they put sea mines in the sea across the Strait of Hormuz, and then it's really much harder to remove sea mines than to lay them. So that is what the Iran would do, but the US Navy is constantly patrolling there, and they very likely would stop them. And the Iranians are not, if they do that, then they can't export their own oil, because that's the Strait of Hormuz, and that's their point where they export it from. If they block the Strait of Hormuz, then they block off their own oil exports. They can't do that for very long. And the US Navy, they'll be nearby, and they'll unblock the Strait of Hormuz. Probably they'll be able to patrol, and they've got either aircraft or patrol boats going past and spot very quickly what's going on. They'll stop the Iranians from mining the strait. And so that's the basic what would go on. Now, if it escalated a little bit here, the Navy is vastly superior. It's got these submarines with the Tomahawk cruise missiles. They've got all their fighter jets and so on. They're incredibly superior to the Iran. There's no match at all whatsoever. So there's not going to be an actual war of any sort, of any significance. All that could happen is that the US does some raids over Iran, and Iran tries to fly some ballistic missiles. It's got far fewer of them left than they had before. They've got far fewer launchers, which means they can't launch very many at once. And if you are in one of these areas, for instance, if you're in Bahrain or Qatar, UAE or something, if you're in this area, and I think Bahrain is one of these areas where the US base is, then remember, they have their ships in the sea and the submarines, and if they have ships, they can do air defenses. They can shoot down with their air interceptors. So they will stop quite a lot of ballistic missiles here. Then you have patriotic air defenses on the land, and most or all the ballistic missiles will be fired down. And then even if some of them do get through, then they're not that much. I explained in my previous video that I'm just uploading right now, that even though the Iranian missiles are not that accurate, they're accurate to within hundreds of meters, unless you're very close to a US base in Bahrain or somewhere, then you're highly unlikely to be affected. And then there's the advice that your authorities would give you as to how to protect yourself as best as possible from the very remote risk of usually probably fragmentation or something, shot down or something, to be protected in case that something like that did happen. But it's just not very likely to happen. It's very unlikely that Iran will close the Strait of Hormuz. Far more likely thing it might try and capture a tanker or something, but I mean even that would be very risky for them. I can't see them doing anything there actually, but we will see. I'm not predicting anything. That is like the hailstorms in summer thing, whether Iran actually does something. A very unlikely event, but you can't say it's impossible. But if they did, they'd be very outmatched. And if you're worried about the effect on the oil, it would only be stopped temporarily, maybe for a week or so. In the very worst case, suppose that Iran manages lots of mines across the strait, and they're difficult getting minesweepers in, and it takes a week or so to unblock it. Then there's the US strategic reserve or oil reserve, and then there's OPEC countries, they can ramp up their oil, and the US would release its strategic reserve in sufficient amounts to compensate for the loss of oil that is going through the Hormuz Strait. There's been quite a lot of work on actually bypassing it by pipeline, so a lot of the oil doesn't actually go through there anymore as well. So it's not as serious as people make it out to be. It's an extremely unlikely thing to happen, but it might happen. But it's not as likely as they say. So people say that Parliament has passed this. They often don't explain that the Ayatollah has the veto. And it's extremely unlikely that he will say yes to this thing that they passed. That's the main thing they miss. And I think this one mentions here, mention the veto. I think he does. 4 of the fleet's combined task forces routinely patrol the Persian Gulf and the Strait, and their surveillance may take away the element of surprise. It would leave Iran's old coastline, all its ports, vulnerable to a vastly superior air and naval strike arsenal, because Israel, for the most part, it's left the naval, Iran's navy intact. And Iran needs its navy, just for protecting its own shipping and stuff like that. It hasn't got a very big navy, but it's important to it. And the US could just sink it all very quickly. And Iran won't want that to happen. And Bahrain is home to the US Navy's 5th Fleet. So I talked about that up there. So you've got the 5th Fleet in Bahrain, and it's got patrols regularly through there. So it's very unlikely they'd be surprised. And it'd be self-defeating because it impact on the country's own crude oil exports. It exports, and it's the largest global importer of hydrocarbons as well. So very difficult to, and it's partly lost its potency because, as I said, key exports like Saudi Arabia and UAE, as I just mentioned, they built pipelines in order for precisely this situation. So the Saudis, they can move 5.1 million barrels per day by the East-West pipeline, and UAE, they can have another 1.5 million barrels per day that they can do, and capability is close to 75% of its total crude output if needed. So that's the UAE there. It can export, and I'm not sure where the pipelines go, but it can export 75% of it away, and Saudi Arabia can export its oil in another direction as well. So and so you can't rule out minor skirmishes and general nuisance, and including and not limited to attacks on energy cargoes that aren't destined for China. So Iran doesn't want to do anything to the tankers that are headed for China. They could randomly hijack a tanker of other tankers in the Strait. So that is possible. Iran has done that before. But all things considered, Iran has been threatening to shut the Strait of Hormuz for years, has never actually attempted to do it or done it. And it's always a first. That fact is quite, and there is, so this is not, they're not predicting the future. Just like I said, hailstorms in summer, very unusual in the United Kingdom. If tomorrow is a summer day, you're looking at a summer day, or in spring like it is now, and you say spring or summer, chance of a hailstorm tomorrow, just not looking at the weather forecast at all, you just know it's extraordinarily unlikely because you don't have it very much in summer. It's quite rare in winter as well. United Kingdom is very rare in summer. well, this is a hailstorm in summer kind of thing. It's not very likely at all. And if it does, then it probably wouldn't succeed. If it does succeed, then most of the oil would still be able to get out. A lot of the oil would get out via pipelines, 75% of UAE oil. And then you've got, they don't mention there, but there's the US Strategic Oil Reserve as well. And like Biden opened that at one point. So Trump could do that as well. So it's a huge oil reserve that the US has that could flood the market with oil if it was to open it. It does it with extreme reluctance because it would depress the oil prices in ways that would be, affect the market and so on. And but it will do that if necessary. So if there was a serious disruption and oil prices start going up in a big way, then the United States would release its strategic oil reserve and then would call on OPEC. And if this went on for a long time, which it won't, at most just a week or so, then OPEC would actually be very likely want to join as well, like the UAE, like Saudi Arabia and so on. They're no friends of Iran, and they would want to help ease the oil price situation, because it doesn't help them if the oil prices go up too high. They want them just the right price. So hopefully that helps some of you if you're scared of the Strait of Hormuz, why Iran is unlikely to block the key oil shipping route. So in this case, it's not my blog article. I think this article is enough by itself. I'm not sure I even need to write an article because they've basically done almost all the debunking. I might write an article if I get a bit of time. I just want to add the bit about the US Strategic Oil Reserves. That's the only thing they left out. All those were things that I knew already and I was going to say. And so I was thinking about writing a blog post exactly like this. It's all written already. And the only thing it leaves out is the US Strategic Oil Reserve. So hopefully that will help you if you're scared about the Hormuz Strait being shut up, closed up. So I'll upload this and I'll put a link to this in the video description, and I'll put a link to my longer article about all the Iranian affairs. I'll put that as well, and then I'll probably do just put a short section there and link to this article for now. So that's how I'll handle this.